Have you ever wondered what the world was like before the first raindrop ever fell? And what did one man see that no one else dared to notice? Why would a father build a ship on dry land while his sons hid their faces? The earth still pulsed with life. The sun warmed endless plains, rivers wound through dense forests, and animals lived among men in a harmony that was becoming rare. But something had changed, not in the skies, but in the hearts of mankind. Noah felt it like an invisible fever. He watched his neighbors drift away from the sacred, trading the silence of the spirit for noise, feasts, and quarrels. The laughter was loud, but the emptiness was louder. Cities expanded, but hearts shrank. The world looked vibrant on the outside, but was rotting from within. Every morning, Noah would kneel and listen, Noah with his ears, but with his soul. And one of those mornings, between the birds' songs and the whisper of the trees, he heard something he didn't expect. Build an ark. The sound wasn't thunderous. There were no flashes of light, just a certainty that settled deep into his bones. God had spoken, and with the command came a vision. Wood, dimensions, compartments, and more than that, the reason the world would be washed. Noah wasn't a warrior, not a king, just an ordinary man, with calloused hands and weary eyes. A husband, a father, but that day, he became something else. A madman in the eyes of others. Because anyone who starts building a ship with no clouds in the sky is called insane. He's lost his mind, the villagers muttered. He's building a wooden tomb for himself. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, helped in silence. But even in them, Noah saw the doubt. With every hammer strike, every timber lifted, their eyes seemed to ask, what if this is just the madness of an old man? Noah's wife Naamah was his anchor. She didn't doubt, but she grieved. She knew what they said behind their backs. She understood the cost of following an invisible call. The hardest part wasn't facing the world. It was watching her children hesitate. Time passed, and the ark grew like a scar in the middle of green fields. What's all this wood for? Noah, waiting for the sea to come pick you up. One neighbor mocked. I'll build a 3-story house too, shouted another, laughing. But Noah didn't answer. He just kept building. Every nail was a prayer, every cut an act of faith. He knew the ark wasn't just a structure, it was a chance, a cry for mercy shaped in wood. At night, Noah looked up at the clear sky and asked himself, did I hear right? Will I survive what's coming? He didn't fear the rain. He feared loneliness, because obeying God often means walking alone, even surrounded by family. He felt the weight of isolation. The people's mockery hurt less than the silence of those he loved. But something kept him going. The gaze of God, invisible, yet present. A gaze that whispered, keep going. And so he did, even with calloused hands, even with a bent back, even without fully understanding, because faith isn't about seeing. It's about building, even before the first drop falls. What would you do if your faith placed you against the entire world? Would you keep going, even when your own children started to doubt you? What if God's silence felt louder than any coming storm? The days dragged on between sawdust, ropes, and wood. The sun rose and set as if mocking the delay of the promise. Not a single cloud in the sky, only dust on their feet and unanswered questions in their hearts. The ark had begun to take shape. Huge, disproportionate, strange. A wooden monster in the middle of a dry field. The children of the village threw stones. The men passed by spitting on the ground, and the women covered their faces when walking by. You can't respect someone trapped in a delusion, said an old man once, staring at the boat like one stares at a tomb. But Noah didn't stop. His muscles screamed. His eyes burned. Sometimes he thought about giving it all up, but then he remembered the sound, the voice, the certainty that didn't come from the outside, but from within. Faith isn't an anchor, it's an internal storm, and he was being shaken every single day. Naamah, his wife, did her best to hold the family together. She cooked in silence, stitched clothes with care, but her eyes betrayed her pain. She didn't doubt the mission. She doubted how much the family could endure. Shem, the oldest son, had grown to quiet. It wasn't rebellion, it was exhaustion. Ham grew irritated, his eyes snapping with anger, like someone trapped in a story he didn't choose. Japheth, the youngest, shifted between tears and sarcasm. Why did he only speak to you, father? Japheth asked one night by the fire. Noah lowered his head. There was no easy answer, because someone had to listen, he whispered. The silence that followed was long and cruel. The tools clanged every day, but what hurt most were the internal sounds, the voices that whispered, you're alone, you're wrong, it won't rain. But at night, when everyone was asleep, Noah would rise and walk to the ark. He would touch the planks with his hands, smell the wood, and close his eyes. There, he would pray, not with pretty words, but with sighs, with tears. Sometimes he wouldn't even speak, he would just stare, hoping to be seen. And sometimes he felt something, like a soft breeze, like a warmth that didn't come from the fire. It wasn't an answer, but it was a presence. Meanwhile, the world seemed to sink deeper into its own darkness. The cities worshipped pleasure. Laws were bought. Innocent blood ran through dark alleys, and no one flinched anymore. God is silent, said the elders. Or maybe he never spoke, laughed the youth. But Noah knew God's silence wasn't absence. It was patience. And that patience was running out. One early morning, while gathering tools left outside, Noah heard footsteps. He turned quickly. A man stood there, face hidden, eyes full of desperation. He was trembling. The man asked, "Is it really going to happen?" Noah didn't say yes or no. He just reached out, offering him water. The man drank. He cried, then left. Never said his name. That was when Noah understood. The ark wasn't just a shelter for animals. It was an altar, a sign, an invitation. But how many would accept it? The wood was in place. The levels were taking shape. The structure of the ark, once just a strange outline in the middle of nowhere, now stood as a reality that no one could ignore. It was no longer a joke. It had become something to fear. The nearby villagers began to avoid the field where the vessel was rising. Children, who once had fun mocking Noah's madness, now only watched from a distance, in silence. Something was different, something even the clear sky couldn't deny. But the sky remained blue. No signs, no thunder, no rain. Noah woke up every day before sunrise. His back ached, his arms no longer responded like before, and deep lines began to mark his face. Signs of a faith that had aged. He didn't speak much. He just built, hammer after hammer, as if writing prayers with nails and wood. Inside the house, the atmosphere was different. His wife Naamah kept more to herself. She knew the mission, but didn't know how to hold the family together anymore. Conversations among the sons had turned into whispers. Glances became sharp. And faith, it spread like mist. Present, but hard to grasp. Ham was the most restless. Every time he saw the size of the ark, he muttered, "This is too big to save just us. There'll be space left." "For what?" Shem corrected him gently. "It's not to have leftovers, it's to make room. Room for whatever God wants to save. And who does he want to save?" Ham replied, his eyes narrowed with doubt. "Because so far, no one's come." And it was true. People watched from afar. Some came out of curiosity, but none stayed. Men laughed. Women pulled their children close. And the wise men of the city said it was all a delusion that would collapse over time. Nature doesn't change because of one old man, they scoffed. But the old man kept going. Each hammer was a warning. Each beam, a calling. One hot afternoon, Noah stopped for a moment and climbed alone to the ark's upper deck. From up there, he looked out at the vast field. All dry, all calm. But in his heart, something stirred. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Lord, The wind blew, but no answer came. Even so, he stayed there, standing like a lonely lighthouse awaiting the storm. That night, an unexpected visitor arrived. A group of men led by someone Noah knew well, a distant cousin named Lamech. He didn't laugh, didn't mock. He simply approached and said, "If this is true, and if it happens as you said, why did God only speak to you?" Noah took his time to respond. He looked at the sky, then at the ground, and finally into his cousin's eyes. "Maybe because I was the only one still listening," Lamech didn't reply. He just left, in silence, and his silence was louder than any mockery. That night, Noah had a dream. He was inside the ark, alone, as water rose to the windows. But what scared him wasn't the water. It was the sound outside: screams, bangs, people begging to get in. Familiar voices, friends, neighbors, children, and he couldn't open the door. It was too late. He woke up with his heart pounding, sweat dripping down his face. He got up, left the house, and walked to the ark. He touched the wood with trembling hands, and wept. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He whispered to no one. I wanted them to understand. That same week, something began to change. Animals, first in pairs, then in groups. They came from far, from near, from all directions, as if something invisible was calling them. People came to see, and for the first time, the laughter stopped. "How do they know where to go?" a woman murmured, holding her child. "This isn't normal," said another. But even witnessing that, no one knelt, no one asked to enter. Noah watched everything with steady eyes. But inside he bled. The ark was almost ready. The promise too, and the time to choose was running out. It was the 7th day since the animals began to arrive. The one silent field filled with timber now pulsed with wild sounds. The lowing of oxen, the growl of bears, the fluttering of birds with colors never before seen in those lands. But among the people, the silence remained. A silence no longer made of mockery, but of fear. Fear too proud to kneel. Animals. Noah walked among the lines of animals. He touched some with reverence, watched the pairs already sheltered inside the ark. His heart ached and rejoiced at once, as if salvation and judgment had decided to walk side by side that final week. In the distance, People still came in groups to watch. They no longer laughed, but they didn't dare approach either. Some whispered, others argued. Doubt filled their eyes, along with anger. "This is witchcraft," muttered one of the city elders, trying to sound sure. "Or a trick to scare the people," said another, though his voice trembled. But what they saw had no trick. A family, ordinary, an old man with calloused hands, no sword, no army, obedient, and would. In Noah's house, his sons stared at each other in silence, saying everything and nothing all at once. Japheth tried to keep faith in his eyes. Shem held the balance. Ham held doubt. Naamah, Noah's wife, spent her days watching the sky. She awaited the rain not as punishment, but as confirmation. For the worst pain of a woman who loves a man of faith is to see that faith ridiculed by all, even by those she gave birth to. On the 8th day, something changed. The sky, once so clear, woke cloaked in clouds. Not ordinary clouds, but a dense veil, heavy, as if the air itself had surrendered to the prophecy. The animals grew restless. The birds flapped more furiously. The oxen circled. The dogs howled even without a moon. Noah felt it, as if something stirred within him. He rose before dawn, went to the field, and fell to his knees before the ark. "Lord, are we ready?" The wind blew, and for the first time in years, he felt an answer. It wasn't a voice, nor a vision, but a command in his chest, a throb that said, "It's time." He returned to the house, called his sons, his daughters-in-law, his wife, looked into each of their eyes, and simply said, "Let's enter." Ham hesitated, looked back toward the village. There some childhood friends watched from afar, laughing maybe, or just mocking in silence. He took a deep breath, almost stepped back, but then he looked at his father and saw peace. Not euphoria, not certainty, but peace. And that was enough. They walked together. One by one, they entered the ark. The animals were already in place. The wood creaked beneath their feet, but everything seemed in order. And then, the door remained open. For 7 days. 7 days in which anyone could have entered. Anyone. One step. Just belief. But no one entered. Some came near, watched, cried, turned away. Others threw stones. Some shouted, "You're mad. There's no real storm. God doesn't speak to people. You're fanatics." But the ark waited. Noah sat near the entrance every day, left the door open, sometimes in silence, sometimes in tears, and one afternoon he whispered to himself, "Until the very last moment I waited." On the 7th day, as the sun began to hide behind dark clouds, a sound pierced the field, a sound not from the earth, not from men, a thunderclap. The sky, until then only gray, exploded with light, and at that moment the ark's door began to move, heavy, slow, but not by human hands. The door closed. With a muffled thud, it sealed time, sealed the choice. Outside, the people ran. Some laughed nervously, others pounded on the wood, but inside the ark, the silence was different. It was the silence of those who love and were not heard. Noah wept. His wife held him in silence. None of them smiled, because even saved they had lost many. And for the first time, the first drop fell. The first drop fell like a whisper, timid alone, as if it asked the earth's permission before announcing the end. Noah heard it, not with his ears, but with his soul. He was sitting against the inner wall of the ark, head bowed, eyes closed. The wood, which he had touched so many times with hope, now felt like a wall, refuge and grief. He did not celebrate, he did not rejoice. He simply wept in silence, because outside there were voices he once knew, voices that now would go unanswered.